We are going to talk about a movie.
This is gonna be a disaster.
It was one of the best movies of the year.
It's gonna go so well. Probably one of the last movies I would ever want to see in a theater.
Hello and welcome to 10 Years On. I am your host, Jacob Blunden, and today we are going to be looking at the films released on May 7th, 2010. But before we get to there, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Taylor Robinson. How are you?
You know, the apartment is still standing and nothing is on fire. And the amount of effort that it took to get this going today to record, you know, that's a testament just on its own. So I'm doing all right because I'm not having to do any real damage control here with how much you wanted to throw the equipment before we started this.
Yeah, a little bit. And let's also introduce our co-guests, I guess, who have been in every single episode so far. Nick and Peter, how are you?
Good. Cohabitants of the house at this point in time. So
Pretty much, yeah.
You're welcome, Jacob.
I'm very, very glad to have you as guests for this.
Yeah, throwback, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very, very glad. But let's start with our first film of the day. We are, of course, talking about Iron Man 2. With the world now aware of his secret identity as Iron Man, Tony Stark must contend with both his declining health and a vengeful madman with ties to his father's legacy. Directed by Jon Favreau and starring Robert Downey Jr. and Mickey Rourke, Iron Man 2 is the third film in the MCU. Guys, what do we think about this poster to begin with?
I don't like it.
No, I don't either.
I hate the Iron Man and War Machine up the top.
Yeah, I think it looks really bad.
This is a real issue with the MCU films in general. They have really terrible posters
Which I don't
for the
get.
most part.
I don't understand at all because there's so much they could do with it, and they basically have the world at their disposal in terms of if someone came to you as an artist and said, will you create a poster that literally the entire world is going to see because it's associated with the MCU?
Yeah.
And they keep coming up with these really crap posters. And for me, my biggest problem with movie posters in general is the stacked posters where they just try and put as many people on a poster as possible. I hate when Star Wars does it. I hate when Marvel does it. I hate when it's suddenly let's pack as many people as we can into this weird shape so that everyone's on the poster.
They go hard out on the fact that they're like, look at all of this amazing talent that we've got. And you're just like, you could just have their names.
Yeah.
And the first Iron Man poster I remember was literally just
the face.
It was,
it was
Robert
But that was
Downey
the,
Jr.
that was
Iron
the
Man.
teaser
but it was
poster,
but that's great. You know, you could probably have, I don't know, Iron Man and War Machine back to back or something. I don't know. But you don't need all...
Or instead of War Machine, how about you have the villain? How about you have Mickey Rourke?
Whiplash.
You know?
I there's a lot about there's a lot of Marvel posters I really do like. We've got some of them behind us.
I do like the Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah,
I do too, and as someone who
gets
doesn't
away with it.
Well, as someone who doesn't like stacked posters, I like this one because they don't take it too far, and they also do something creative with it.
It has a bit more of an artistic.
It's
flair
not
to
just throwing as many people, and even this one I don't mind so much because it's not just this weird. At least they try to do something that looks decent with it, and this one's not so bad in the fact that there aren't a ton of people on it.
Yeah.
I just don't like the way that they did it.
And
it's
dull.
It is.
And Robert Downey Jr. and Don Cheadle are they're the same tone. Gwyneth Paltrow's really just been plopped in there.
Well, and then you have her whole body. Why do you have Scarlett Johansson's whole body?
Because it's Scarlett Johansson.
Okay, but
it doesn't.
Don't give me that bullshit answer. I'm not talking about the actual reason of why they're doing it. I'm talking about artistically. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And it's not even a good way to show off her body.
No,
it doesn't even look like she has a good body in this picture because of the way that they've done it.
And is that Iron Man in the middle or is that Whiplash?
That's Iron Man falling.
Falling. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Have Iron Man falling
as the poster.
Yeah. I mean, it would get people interested to be like, shit, are they gonna is Iron Man gonna survive this? You know? Yeah.
I have a big problem with a lot of the Marvel posters just because they just do the thing where they just paste as many people into the middle of it as they can.
Yeah.
And then kind of do something with the background.
Well, on that note, let's actually start talking about the Iron Man 2 film. Going in, so we'd all seen this, obviously. I mean, it's Iron Man. It's one of the most... This franchise, we are now actually into the summer movie season. We're talking about the big blockbusters of the year of 2010. Iron Man 2 is obviously one of the bigger blockbusters from that year. What were your thoughts before you rewatched it? Like, what did you bring into the movie?
I think going into it, I didn't have very high expectations, but I didn't have very low ones either. Like, I remember it being kind of a middle of the road film where there were parts of it that I really liked, parts of it that I thought you could take or leave. It was always in my memory just the kind of movie that it was like, yeah, like it was fine.
Yeah. It's one of the Marvel movies that is never really held in the highest regard. And I think because it was still such early days for the MCU, so they were really trying to find their footing. Like, I don't think they expected Iron Man to be
The film
the colossal hit it was. I mean, you've got the fact that Robert Downey Jr. was paid less money than Terrence Howard in that. And I read up on this one. Like, there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff, which is why this film does feel disjointed, because they were like, the Marvel execs were like, we want more SHIELD stuff, and Jon Favreau was like, I don't want that. And you can tell they were really trying to push Scarlett Johansson to be this big character in it, and then Mickey Rourke kind of got completely sidelined, which like the villain should be, your big.
Which you can tell is you can when you watch it, you can go, clearly there are two very distinct ideas of what this movie should be happening in this movie, and they don't quite reconcile with each other.
Yeah,
No.
which is why Jon Favreau was like, I'm not directing the next one, because he was just so
This one burnt him.
disheartened. Yeah.
And I think on rewatching it, it definitely, I was in two states of mind while rewatching it. I was like, you can definitely tell that either they have tried to add a lot more stuff in later Marvel films, because there's a lot of like, I was watching this, I was like, oh wow, they bring that up again and that up again, and you can kind of make me go, have they done it just to make Iron Man 2 seem more relevant, which then obviously speaks volumes about the issues they would have had initially making it? Because as a standalone Iron Man movie, it's pretty bland. It's a bit unexciting. It takes a long time for the first real action scene to happen, which Iron Man 1 is a different case. Like, you're thrown into a lot of action early on. And then you hear a reference, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I was like, oh, that's only cool because I know what happens. I know what's coming later in the MCU. So rewatchable for sure, but it's rewatchable because of how extended now
I think
the
that's
Marvel
it. You
movies are.
rewatch it going, I know where all of this is going. I can see that you were dropping little things here and there, even though I don't think you entirely knew what to do with it.
It didn't feel
but
planned dropping things, but
I can see, and they've
they've
this
tied
movie,
a nice enough bow on top of it.
But this movie, they really played up the whole, he's the loose cannon playboy sort of thing, and that kind of just got
that like first person shot where he's like walking out of the whatever,
and like when he's drunk at his party and he's doing stuff, and
So I have real issues with what the story they decided to tell with this one. I think if it leaned more heavily, I don't like that they decided to do Demon in a Bottle in this film. Like, I really kind of wish they just heavily leaned on legacy. Like, so the first film's about, obviously his personal legacy. What is Tony Stark's legacy going to be? I think if you followed up this second one about what does it mean if the legacy of my father is tarnished? So and I think that's where they were going, and
they start off pretty strong with that. And
that's where they start, and then they don't really, they kind of drop that to do Demon in a Bottle, which is, I don't think the MCU was ever prepared to actually do Demon in a Bottle, and then they also
do you
try.
So
for those of you who don't know, Demon in a Bottle is the storyline where Tony Stark is an alcoholic, and he is a full-blown alcoholic. He has a lot of issues with alcohol, and basically becomes a pseudo-villain for a bit. Like, he's not, he never goes full-on villainous, but he does become a danger to a lot of people, and he has to be stopped. issue I have with them doing Demon in a Bottle in this one is you decided to do 3 stories.
Yeah.
And Avengers set up Demon in a Bottle and Legacy.
Yeah.
And you've tried to link them all into one story, and it just doesn't work.
And it's kind of weird because it doesn't feel that convoluted when you're watching it. But then on retrospect, with retrospect, I was like, it almost didn't touch enough on one thing where I was interested enough in any one of those stories. So normally you can not get away with, but you can at least attach yourself to one of those 3 elements. And I walked out, I was like, what's going to happen next? And I want to know what's going to happen next because it's more exciting.
Well, because you get to the point where you should be like emotionally invested in what he's finding out about his father's legacy and how his father has left footage for him and like all this stuff. And you should be this moment where you're like really getting to spend time with how he feels about his father and his legacy and reconciling how that all feels to him. Because obviously they didn't have a good relationship when his dad was alive. And then you just don't really get a payoff anywhere from that, really. Like, he makes what needs to be made from it, but it's kind of just falls a little flat.
Yeah.
And then you've got, like, I understand what they were trying to do with Scarlett Johansson in this movie, but it just feels tacked on in a lot of ways because it should be so interesting to have her show up out of nowhere. All of a sudden she's the assistant for this huge company. Like she's in there like a spy would be, like a spy should be, but it just feels like something is missing from how they do that.
And that happened in a lot of the early Marvel films because and I think that's just something we've come to forgive because now Black Widow is a huge character who now has her own movie coming out. So like we love the fact that we see her pop up in Iron Man 2. But I agree. It's sort of, we've all said it now anyway. It's just too many fingers in this one pie that is Iron Man 2, and it's just sort of, it tarnishes the taste a little.
But like they rectified a lot of stuff, which is good, but
my personal favorite thing about Iron Man 2 is our boy Hammer.
Yeah.
Our boy Justin Hammer is
I just love Sam
just
Rockwell
the best,
everything.
dude.
his tan the first time I saw that movie, I remember watching it going, the tan on it. And I was like, and I get that would be what his character would do. He would
have a really bad tan.
Tan. But watching it, I'm like, every single time when he's talking to Mickey Rourke in the airport hangar, and he gets him that little dinner and his bird.
The Boyd.
I need my bird. That was very Italian. I don't know. But like,
not Russian.
No, not Russian. But then like Sam Rockwell keeps doing this, and I look at it and I was like, the fucking bad tan on his hand. But it's great for his character.
One of my favorite scenes, like ever though, really in the MCU is towards the beginning of the movie where they're both in like the Senate hearing or the House hearing or whatever.
Awesome. That is
the Senate hearing and like Hammer's just flubbing his way through this thing and Tony's just sitting there like just hacking everything and something you mentioned that I want you to talk about is when we get Rhodey in this movie, James Rhodes, when he makes his entrance.
Yes.
In the Senate hearing,
I'm completely blanking on what I actually talked about.
Do you need help?
Yes, please.
The line that he says that kind of puts everything to rest with the casting change.
Oh, right. Yes. Sorry.
That
line.
That took way too long for you to get to where I needed you to go.
I was thinking.
There's a lot.
I was thinking a lot
that
later.
later.
That line of, "Look, I'm here. Deal with it. Move on."
Yeah.
Perfect.
So good.
It is such a fantastic line.
Because Robert Downey Jr. says something like, "I wasn't expecting to see you."
Yeah.
And it's just like, "I'm here, deal with it." Like, fucking.
It's really clever because everyone knew that Terrence Howard was very like, he was like, "I'm the bigger star."
That's right.
And you're like, you're not. And then him, because he had a lot of demands for the second one, so they were just like, we don't
They're like,
need
this
you.
is not worth it.
And like, he was fine in the first one, but
he didn't
he
really.
wasn't like, I know that they were very much setting up for.
Yeah. They were clearly setting up for War Machine.
I was like, he was a replacement that you were like, I'm not fussed by this at all.
I wouldn't have believed him as War Machine, though.
Mm.
Like, with the performance he gave in the first movie, there's no way I would have believed him as War Machine.
Don Cheadle is a lot more of a presence.
Yeah, 100%. And the only reason that Robert Downey Jr. got paid less on the first movie, in my opinion, is because they didn't trust him yet.
That's it. Yeah. He was still like, we have to think about
like he was
coming off of years of being blacklisted. And
Yeah.
then he made a few movies in the early 2000s that weren't, like Gothica and some Shaggy Dog. Was it
the Shaggy Dog is in, but even those, he was still a problem on those movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why giving him this role, they were like, well, you're getting half your paycheck now and the rest of it when you finish.
Which makes sense, but that doesn't mean he's a lesser star than Terrence
No,
Howard,
yeah.
which is the way Terrence Howard
took
saw it. And it was like, no.
I got a bigger paycheck. I'm the bigger star. And you're like, no, you're not.
Like, you're real. Let's look at the resumes. Like, you're not, but
Like,
we just need to be careful with.
Even Robert Downey Jr. at his worst is like, he's still got more prolific movies than Terrence Howard.
But yeah, I mean, look, for me, Iron Man 2, everyone's already said it. It's a mediocre MCU movie that has only gotten...
It's become more rewatchable. Yeah.
If we were watching it in 2010, it's not a good movie. That it's gotten better with age, but that's because we know where it's going. And it's not...
And if you view it as part of a whole.
Yeah, exactly. If you
yeah.
watch this as a standalone film, it's not good. Like, it's a genuinely not good movie that is only barely saved by Robert Downey Jr. If you watch it as a part of a whole, it works better. And you have to watch it as part of the whole. But that's...
I love Gary Shandling in it as well.
He
is so funny.
At the end,
the little prick line at the end is so
and
good.
he's like, the way that he smiles is like this. Like, I was like, that's not a real face.
But that's what I mean. My
yeah.
favorite part of this movie is like all the Senate stuff, where they're all just being
it's
politicians
awesome.
and all just being like the smarmy.
It's like, say this one extract from this one piece. He's like, well, the context. Say the one.
We want this one sentence, damn it.
I was like, wait a second, that's real life.
And I think that's something that this film does great, is there are little moments that are fantastic that you can go, that's a great moment, or that's a great performance, or that's someone great in this movie, but you can't, as a whole, it's kind of, you're looking at going, okay, there's a lot of problems here that, you're right, clearly down the line they fixed. So,
and on great performances, not necessarily great performance, but Elon Musk pops up in this movie, and
Dude,
I completely forgot that.
I have something to say about that. It makes so much more sense rewatching it now for him to be friends with Tony Stark than it did when he was actually in the movie.
Yeah.
Because nobody would have known who the hell he was back then. And watching it back, you're like, how did they predict this bullshit that Tony Stark would actually be friends with who Elon Musk is now? At least that Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Imagine Elon Musk pops up later on in the MCU.
But
as his own superhero. That'd be pretty cool.
Probably going to happen.
as speaking of like scenes that on their own, I was like, I've always loved Black Widow kicking the shit out of everybody in that hallway.
In the hallway,
whilst Happy is like going hard out on just one guy. Finishes and he's like, I did it. And then there's just all these people hanging. I was like, I love it.
I love that scene, but I'm so angry with what wig they gave her during that scene.
Yeah.
Bad times.
Yeah.
Real bad times.
But do we think that we would have preferred the original choice of Emily Blunt?
I mean, I personally do, yes. Just because...
I can definitely see it, to be honest.
Like, I think...
I didn't even know that until
Yeah, she was the original choice,
I
and she
think
backed out because of Gulliver's Travels. She had scheduling conflicts.
I think she would have been more... I don't want to say Scarlett has been bad, because she hasn't been bad as this character. She's been really good, but I think Emily Blunt has a little bit more... We've seen her have more grit in a way that I would have liked to see from a spy. Like, she's a little bit more, like...
You think of Sicario.
And you think Edge of Tomorrow, and you think she can kick ass, but she's a little bit more... Like, it feels more grounded to me than what Scarlett does.
Because I think it's because, like...
I like that.
I think because, like, I mean, Emily Blunt, like, beautiful.
Oh,
but
God,
I think because Scarlett Johansson, it was like this, like, bombshell sort of thing. So, like, her fighting, it's like... It's believable, and I definitely think Scarlett Johansson's character has progressed.
Yes.
It's gotten a lot better.
This movie, it's just like you're purely like an object.
Well, because, and we get that from the scene where Tony's on his iPad pulling up like fucking...
lingerie.
Yeah. Like, you get what they wanted her to be in this movie.
But,
And I mean, if you're going to want that, you pick Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, she's the right person to cast if that's what you want. Yeah. Because the photos that she has like that, you're like, really? Are you a real person? I don't think so.
But then there's the, hey, it's maybe a blessing in disguise, because we could get Emily Blunt now in later film.
Yeah, but I have problems with...
Fair enough. All right. Well, that's Iron Man 2. We're all kind of a mixed bag on it. It's
like...
I
think... Even a mediocre Marvel movie is still
an enjoyable,
still a watchable movie. But
Peter, it's not cinema. How dare you?
It's a theme park ride.
It's a theme park ride movie, and I
Join the
can't
queue.
believe that you would even say.
Comment.
Sorry, I'm just like, wait, like I know that's
love
coming,
it. I
so
love
I've
it.
just gotta
Nah.
put out there that mediocre
come.
Marvel movies are not allowed to be praised because they're just
And
a
also-
spectacle.
And also, there'll be a lot of people that'll be like, "There's no such thing as a mediocre Marvel movie."
Those people too.
I didn't see Thor: The Dark World then.
Oh God, that's next year. No, it's not. It's 3 years from now. Oh God. All right, let's move on to. We're going to talk about an Aussie film. So let's move on.
Are we allowed to?
Yeah, we're actually going to talk about a.
Is that?
What?
Wait, we haven't hit our quota yet.
Yeah, fair.
All right, let's move on and talk about the Aussie film I Love You Too.
That poster.
A
Okay.
commitment phobe and a new ager buddy up to win over the women of their respective dreams.
Wait. Let me
That's
just hold on.
That's
Let
a
me
high
just-
budget Australian
A
film.
commitment phobe.
Yeah.
Commitment phobe.
Yeah. That's
Right.
an Australian word.
And a new ager. A new ager.
I don't know what that means, but all right.
Buddy up.
New age. Cool.
Buddy up. To win over the woman of their respective dreams. That is
So New Ager in the sense this film is Peter Dinklage's character, obviously.
I'm guessing.
And because he lives in a nice apartment as opposed to out in the burbs like us other Oz, like every other Australian, obviously, that's why he's a New Ager. We haven't got fancy new apartment buildings in Australia as of 2010. That's what this movie's basically saying. And he drinks wine, I think, as well. So that's probably we're only
but
seeing vegans
I just
here.
want to know, outside of Australia, is commitment phobe like a real thing?
I've heard commitment phobe.
Okay.
I'm not
I'm just
outside Australia.
wondering. I'm just wondering because that sounds like a very interesting way to like frame this. More of like a jackass who just doesn't want to.
A guy that fucking dates someone for 3 years and doesn't say "I love you."
Like what even is that? Like
That's
Bullshit.
a synopsis written by Australian comedian Peter Hellier.
Yeah, so directed by Deanna Reed, written by Peter Hellier, and starring Brendan Cowell, Peter Dinklage, and Yvonne Stravinsky.
Yvonne Strahovski,
Thank
how
you.
dare you? How dare
All right,
you?
let's talk about this poster.
Okay, hold on.
Posters.
Hold on.
Yeah, yep.
Hold on. First of all, do you know how clever they thought they were putting Peter Dinklage on a stack of something
Oh, God,
They
to
thought
make
they were
him
being
taller?
hilarious. And like, and we'll put him next to Megan Gale because she's a behemoth, so that way it makes it look even funnier.
Like, do you know how much they probably sat in the office high-fiving over that decision?
He doesn't actually look like he's even standing on.
he would have just
100% put that afterwards.
Yeah, they've like photoshopped that in. They're thinking that.
Also, what's with Peter Hellier's pants?
What's with Peter Hellier being in this poster?
What's him with a fedora? Yeah.
Like,
And like
they
Pink
but-
shirt. There's so much wrong
but
with
they,
this.
and Yvonne looks like, I was like, her character should not be that happy at
No,
all.
no. Like this is such a. It's a bad rom-com poster. Like
Yeah.
it's.
I
just,
don't get the white background.
No.
I don't either.
Like I know it was like a trend
They
at some
maxed out
point
the
to
budget
do that,
photoshopping
but
those
like,
books in.
but
they,
like,
they had to pay for Megan Gale. So
Yeah.
I
mean,
just I just don't understand this poster.
That's
Yeah.
alright.
I don't get it, but
It's
you
one
know,
of many.
it's
don't
not
either.
it's not one of the worst Photoshop jobs I've seen though this
Oh,
year.
no.
So
we've seen
Oh, what
worse.
did I get married to?
We've seen worse.
so
but, all right, let's.
yeah. First of all, I just want to start off by saying, apparently Yvonne Strahovski is never allowed to be Australian in anything, even in
No,
Australian
That's
movies.
great.
So you
She's
guys
British
don't
in
even
the film.
you guys don't even want to claim her in your own movies, which makes no sense to me.
Because
But-
we, for some reason, we claim a lot of other people that
Outside
don't
of
deserve it.
Peter Dinklage is the most famous person internationally on that poster
Yeah.
as well.
Oh
So of
God,
course we want to be like
she's
Australian.
she's recognized for so much. So many people love her from The Handmaid's Tale, from Chuck, from
Yeah.
People
like,
probably don't
Dexter.
know she's
Dexter.
Australian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably not because
Yeah.
you guys don't
She was
claim her.
Right.
That's why she ran off to the States and actually made a career out of
Fair,
it.
you know what? Fair call, Yvonne.
So where do we begin with this movie? Because
Let's just start right at the beginning
okay.
with that incredible
Oh God, that opening scene!
in the
Oh
club.
my God!
Every Australian nightclub where two straight single dudes walk in and be like, let's get it, and then just go and get pissed and
And
chat up chicks and
Can I just actually? Sorry, can I just actually say real quick? To be fair, that is pretty much what two 30-year-olds would do.
I'm not bashing the movie for like making up a scenario. That's real. That happens at every
But the
RSL club and pub in Australia.
But the script behind that idea
the script
is
so
just like
Like when, so when Peter Hellier's chatting up Ivan Strahovski, and he's completely striking out, and then when Brendan Cowell goes to talk to her, I legit thought that it was like they already knew each other, and it was kind of like they were having fun pretending not to know each other, because the conversation, it doesn't sound like two people like
Who know each other?
Right. Okay.
Like, and then they they go to bed and they wake up in the morning, and it's like I expect them to be like to talk as if like last night was fun, meaning like how we pretended to not know each other, because the way that they talk to each other is not the way that someone like talks to someone for the first time.
It's sort of like that amplified sort of romantic way.
But then there was like, oh, okay, that's their meeting for the first time, and then we fast forward like 3 years, and
But even I do want to go before that.
somehow she's still with him.
I'm not gonna lie. The one joke that I thought was pretty funny was when he's sleeping with the girl. When Brendan Cowell's got the girl before they've met. He's met the next girl, like the first night that they go out. He's sleeping with the girl, and Hellier's trying to hit on the friend.
oh,
sitting on the couch.
He's sitting on the couch. That was funny. That was so
and he goes
funny.
for like the kiss, and it's like, oh, buddy.
It was
Like-
awkward, but it was funny.
The only time I legitimately laughed was getting the hooker to do the blanket. That was the only time, because I was like, that was really well, like it was really well
Context for
timed.
that scene though,
Right?
we got a hooker putting a blanket on in this film, because the friend Peter Hellier pays for his friend Brendan Cowell to have a hooker sleep with him because he's heartbroken, and then he doesn't want to do it, and she's like, well, you're gonna pay me, and you know,
She's like, I'm not going to have sex with you, but you're going to pay me.
You're going to pay me anyway. And he's like, well, I may as well get you to do stuff around the house. And he's like, I'm having trouble putting this
and then he
blanket
says
cover
like,
on
he's
the
like,
duvet.
how are you with
How are you with
with
duvets?
and then the scene like stops, and then when it cuts back to it, she's in the
struggling
background doing it. So I was like, that was a funny little
That's
thing.
very good.
But that was about it for me. And also, I don't know about like a lot of straight Australian culture, but do we really buy our friends prostitutes like that? That feels like an American thing.
I've never done it personally, and I've had none of
I'm
my
shocked.
friends. What are you trying to say about me?
you know what I'm saying.
And I have never done it for my friends. So
Look,
Jacob?
when I did it for my mate, he got that was a bit weird.
That doesn't feel like
that was a bit weird.
Well,
like,
I was wondering because like I've never really heard even that talked about much in joking like party
No,
culture
yeah.
here. Like that's
not
No, like I don't
Not a
think it's
prostitute
something
anyway.
that we. Yeah, I feel like. I don't
know.
Yeah, I don't think
it doesn't seem real.
It doesn't seem like. I think like this was Peter Hellier's attempt at trying to be like
a dude, bro.
and like be like
yeah.
grabbing all of the things he's seen in other romantic comedies,
Yeah.
predominantly American
Yeah.
comedies, and tries to make it.
That's definitely what it feels like. It feels like Australia's attempt at an American romantic comedy, and there's definitely humor differences between like what we all find funny in our cultures, and that's why I think a lot of this film isn't that funny.
and the fucking airport trope. Bloody hell.
we'll get to the airport trope.
I thought it was interesting, like when we have Peter Dinklage and Loverboy in Peter Dinklage's house, and he's like, I'm gonna call the cops, and they have this whole like scene, and then the cops show up, and I was like, well, that's not realistic, because your guys' cops, from what I've seen, are very chill about a lot of things, but they show up like, I can't believe that, blah, and I'm like, you guys aren't that aggressive.
And also, like the way that Peter Dinklage responds, as a cop's going to be like, I'm going to come into this house because you're acting really weird, really
You've
shady.
called
yeah,
police.
but which I agree, but they're not like,
No, like-
they feel like they're trying to play American cops.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
doesn't
The way that
feel.
like Australian cops, if they rock up to a house and they it's like they're very
They're just doing a check.
yeah.
It's just
And they're
very
kind of just like,
polite.
and they're kind of just like,
what's going on here?
Yeah, because I remember the cops were called on me because I was watching Hostel Part 2 too loud. So screaming in the house, so the next door neighbors thought someone's dying in that house.
Chainsaws and shit going on.
So the police rocked up, knocked on my door, and he was like, "We've just been given a a call about what's going on in this house. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, I'm watching a horror movie. And he was like, oh. He's like, we love these calls. We got to do anything. He's like, turn your volume down. I'm like, yeah, no worries. Like, that was it. I was like, very chill.
Australia.
Like, but like, just because I've never dealt with cops here at all, but just from having lived here for a while now, it just felt
That
weird.
Was, I think it's going for the American thing and translating to Australia, and it's like, and it doesn't work because so much of the stuff is like not stuff that we do.
Well, especially since they didn't try to hide the fact that these houses are definitely Australian houses.
Yeah.
Like the
God,
the brickwork and the way you guys have your mailboxes.
Granny
like,
flats out the back.
like
Like
it's
every house has
it's
that.
very, very specific to here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't get like there's a disconnect with that definitely where it's very grounded here.
Yeah.
But then you get to like the script and the way the story is written and it just feels a little
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the funniest things that like one of the things that made it feel so different with the humor it was trying is the brother-in-law who's trying to get on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Oh
That's a very Australian sort of joke. Like that's something that's funny because we have films like The Castle and stuff that are built on that sort of humor of the everyday bloke thinking that getting on a TV show and potentially winning $1 million is the be-all and end-all of everything. And then he doesn't do it, and that's funny. But then it's juxtaposed. I had a giggle, sorry. But juxtaposed with it trying to do everything else that it does in the film, like be over the top with like its airport scenes and stuff like that, and just it's such a and we haven't even talked about the mishmash of genres yet that this film tries to go through.
Let's pivot to that, just because I do want to talk about the fact that this movie is two completely different movies. There is.
But it doesn't feel like it's two completely different movies until it gets to that point.
Yeah, until about 20 minutes to go, then it becomes two completely different movies, where there is one movie that's being told about a romantic comedy that is fairly filled with every trope in the book that follows very, very basic, traditional rom-com
The
stuff.
couple break up.
Yeah,
he realizes he made a mistake. She sometimes wants to get back together. Blah blah blah. We're gonna get back together again.
The best friend comes and saves the day. And is like he actually loves you. It's all my fault.
Yeah, like it's the movie's about a.
I love when men come in and try to fix things like they know how any of this stuff works.
Yeah, like
You know this relationship that has nothing to do with me. It's all my fault.
Men, stay the fuck out of it.
We don't know anything. We're dumb as fuck.
And then you have this other movie, where Peter Dinklage is trying to get over the loss of his wife, and is basically projecting that onto a celebrity.
The most unattainable.
Yeah, the most unobtainable celebrity on purpose. He's doing it on purpose, so he doesn't have to deal with his or his grief, essentially.
Yeah.
And then,
which is an interesting concept.
It is.
It's
actually
quite a good concept.
Because when you realize that the girl that he's after is Megan Gale, who's this
Italian
world famous supermodel, and they go to the book signing and he gives them the letter, blah blah, and then she opens it and contacts Peter Dinklage, which initially I was like, I don't think she ever would have been given the letter by her publicist, but her getting the letter and then her calling him up and him coming over. I was watching that scene going, this is actually kind of sweet. Like I actually really liked their scene together because it's not what you expect. And they don't really push a romance angle. Like Megan Gale is very much just like, I'm just going to talk to you. Like this is just, and he's fine with that. I like that he didn't really go in.
Because not once was the movie also ever trying to push anything sort of romantic or sexualize it anyway.
Yeah.
There's not one point where he's like, I'm going to try and take her up to the hotel room or anything. It's just a man who is coming to closure.
And you can see that when he rocks up, she's like, she is taken aback. And he's like, I know that I'm not what you expect. And I like that she didn't
just go,
but I like that she didn't turn mean.
No.
It was a case of, I'm still going to hang out with you for the night, but that's it. And I was like, that's nice. It was really, really sweet. And then...
And then, and I agree with you. So I did. That was all really sweet, and I actually really do love that scene. I think it works well. I think it's played right. And then it's sudden, and then the scene where he's talking to his wife, I think works.
That's right. She goes to the bar.
really-
Megan Gale goes to the bathroom.
Megan Gale goes to the
Yeah.
bathroom, and he talks to his dead wife, like a projection of his
Yeah.
wife. And I loved that scene. I thought that worked really well.
It was like a nice kind of little bit of closure.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
And then he dies.
They lock the door. on us.
Spoiler.
Yeah. So and that just felt weird and completely out of place when it's being juxtaposed to I need to get to the airport on time.
Yeah.
That felt weird. And
Because
that's yeah.
it's not like it comes completely out of nowhere because they allude to it straight away in the film when you first meet him that he needs to take these pills.
And you
then
see
when
him
he gets
forget
out-
them.
He gets out of the elevator and he doesn't.
Which was
have
a
them on
nice
him, yeah.
touch to be that he like, so that way when he does die, you sort of like, oh, he did forget to take his pill.
Like he
but
didn't
it
die
also-
of cringe in that elevator with Hamish Blake.
Oh,
Oh boy.
I'm not going to start on that.
Yeah,
But yes.
and I did like that, but it just his death came out of nowhere, and it never. I don't think the film quite earns it in that it doesn't quite build up to the moment of him going, no, this is how I'm dealing with grief, or this is like there's just.
Do you think it would have worked if the movie was about him? So we still have
I
the
think so,
subplot
yes.
of Brendan Cowell, but that was the side story, him chasing Yvonne Strahovski.
Even
Fuck
if
me,
the
I
whole,
can't
but
say
you
it
know
either.
what? Even if the whole movie,
Australians.
even if the whole movie was just Peter Dinklage trying to get closure from the passing of his wife
And writing letters for various people and stuff.
like
yeah.
that would have been, I think that would have been
a nicer movie.
a nice little movie. And so that when he passes away, like he passes away, and then Megan Gale gets into the car, they drive off in separate, and then you
As
see that.
he's getting put in
And then you see the ambulance
the-
go, and then
the
he
body
and his
bag,
wife are there as ghosts. And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that
And then
just
hard cut to comedy hygiene.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I think that's my issue with it is
Yeah.
that it's juxtaposed against this typical romantic comedy that just completely feels out of place. You have been very quiet through all of this.
Yeah, I'm just letting you guys talk and flub through Yvonne Strahovski's name. Even though you guys can say all the ridiculous names that NRL players have, but you can't say Yvonne
I
Strahovski.
said Strahovski.
Strahovski.
There we go. I mean, you guys are basically saying all that there is to say. I had a lot of fun with this movie. Not necessarily because it's a well-made movie, but I just had a fun time with it. I had a fun time laughing at how goofy it was and how some of the decisions they made were ridiculous. And
Yeah.
I just, I just sat there and was like, this
It
is
is
fun.
very over the top.
And
yeah.
the only point where it kind of was like, I'm not having so much fun with this anymore is when it shifts. When
Yeah.
all of a sudden what we just talked about,
Yeah.
it just becomes a different movie and you're like, wow, I'm actually really sad now.
It's
Really
It's
sad.
because like the scene with Peter Dinklage and Megan Gale, it's like because it's so sweet and it stops being over the top. It actually feels
Yeah.
like
Genuine. It's
remote. Yeah,
very
it's
genuine.
genuine. Like because you almost imagine he's probably dealt with that kind of reaction his whole life. And his wife was probably the one person that he obviously like she didn't. Because his wife, it's not like he was married to a
Small person.
yes. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But like.
I'd probably
I
say.
think that was a nice touch that it was a case of they were just in a relationship together and his size just happens to be his size. It's got nothing to do with who he is as a person. So when it does that and then it cuts back to like, oh, we've got to get to the airport and Rose Byrne's in the back seat.
Yeah, this like
which was kind
the
of
random
great.
Rose Byrne
But yeah,
cameo was
But it was funny
fantastic.
watching that scene going like, that's right, she wasn't a big star yet.
Bridesmaids hadn't come out yet.
Yeah, so it's like it was weird that she had this like nothing role, but I'm like, no, of course she would have because she wasn't a thing yet. Yeah.
I think Peter Dinklage had a lot of fun filming this movie, though.
Yeah,
I
you
think
could
he
tell
did
that
too,
he was
yeah.
having a good time.
Yeah.
I also think Peter Dinklage is really fantastic in this.
I think he is too.
He is the heart and soul of the movie, and it's the only reason. Because I agree with you. There's a lot of this movie that I had a lot of fun with, and he is a lot of the reason for that because he is having fun, and you can tell.
And he's not only in this last portion of the film, like he's a big part of it because what he does is writes the letters that Brendan Cowell's character is giving to Yvonne Strahovski.
I was like, wait for it.
Throughout the film. So he has a prominent role in the film. It's not like he's just this random side plot, but because he has the biggest emotional payoff in the film, it does feel like, well, if that story was switched slightly, then maybe it would have been.
Well, I agree, because the emotional payoff you get when this grown man, after 3 years, realizes that saying "I love you" is important.
Wait, what?
That's
the
not
key to everything.
That's not quite the like payoff at the end that you get if you switch it with the other story.
Exactly.
Because if the last shot you see is their ghosts together walking away,
That
you
would
go,
be-
you know what?
That would be a beautiful
Hell
ending.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when you have man-child in a pink shirt standing there going,
Standing on the bridge.
going,
Big old
I've learned my lesson. I've had
just gonna
Yvonne
write this-
Strahovski standing in front of me, a man-child, this whole time.
And all she needs is a
just
giant
like-
sign that says, I love you too.
But I don't
That's the name of the
know.
movie.
I don't know anybody that would be in a relationship for 3 years
At that age.
at that
At
age,
that age.
and hadn't said "I love you" back and would still be together.
No.
I mean, I don't either, but...
Depends on the dynamics
but,
of the relationship,
yeah,
but they are very much like cohabitat, sort of like they live together in the granny flat. They both sort of have a day, like they live their lives like synced together.
Also,
when he goes to his
at
job.
one point, what Peter Haley didn't they? At one point, he was like, "I'm 33" or "I'm 35."
Oh,
And
he's
I was-
30.
yeah.
He's
And
30.
and I
in
was
this movie,
like,
yeah.
Oh, bless. In the movies, you can be anything you want.
Right,
I
but
mean,
was like, Peter Haley, I was like, "You're not remotely 30." like that's when
Between this movie and Beneath Hill 60, you can be whatever age you want.
Brendan Cowell just
like in my-
a matter of
'cause
2 weeks,
like in my
shifting age range.
Because like in my message, I was just like, "Look, I'm not saying anything." I was like, "I'm 35, and I look like a teenager compared to them being 30."
Oh,
Also,
God. I
his
think that's the
job in
first
the-
time any of us have mentioned age on the podcast.
Yeah, that's how
Oh, like
I
a
am.
personal age.
Yeah.
I'm 4. Mentally. Brendan Cowell's job in this film was fantastic as well. He's a miniature steam train driver.
That scene,
That is-
Which is, it's a
That
real
is-
thing.
That is the most freaking Australian plot point.
The suburb that I grew up in has a miniature steam train. Like, it's real.
Did anybody else kind of like hate the scene where he has to tell the larger woman?
Oh,
That
yeah.
just
I
made
think we
me.
skipped it.
No, we definitely watched
did?
That made me
Okay.
Yes,
feel.
we did.
His boss is like, yeah, that big lard
I
can't
was
go on
like-
there. The train won't bloody move. And you're like, that's awful.
That really was not a fun.
Yeah, no, that
scene.
was not great.
Again, that's...
I
It's,
mean, I did like that after he was just like, "I quit. Like this is gross." And
But
then
then
he was
again-
like, "Oh, I've wanted you to quit this whole time." I'm like, Jesus Christ.
But like that comes down to this whole like an issue I have is he is a man child and the movie doesn't do enough to justify him being a man child. Like
Yeah.
and that's the thing. It's okay. He's clearly
They attempt to
with the parents being dead. Like
the parents being
that's-
dead, and then also when he's like, my biggest fantasy is having sex with a chick dressed as a superhero. And I'm like, no, that doesn't make you a man child. It just means you have a fetish.
Yeah,
and it's
but
superheroes.
there is a difference.
But they never really give him enough emotional like reasoning for why he is so stunted.
But that's why at the end when it finally like concludes and you're like,
Like, I feel like as much as he said, "I love you," there's still all the other problems
Yeah.
in your relationship. Like, they don't make him like charming enough
No.
to
No.
be the man. Like, if you're a man child, it's like that shit's got to change. But if you've got a little bit of charisma about you, you sort of like.
You want to know who would have if this wasn't an Australian film? Say it was basically the same script but in America. Okay.
Would have been $100 million hit probably.
But
probably.
Jason Segel as that's the type of role it should have been. Like someone like Jason Segel where he can be that charming,
very I love you man sort of
but that charming, funny person who you go, okay, I can see why they're together.
And it still would have been Peter Dinklage and probably Yvonne Strahovski.
Probably, honestly.
Yeah, like
Probably.
Yeah, I just think that's where they he is a bit miscast in that.
Peter Haley
because-
would have been like Seth Rogen or someone like that.
Yeah, probably.
But
Probably
but the thing is the age casting would have been more believable
Right.
probably.
Right, yeah.
Where you're like, okay, I could go with 30.
We just age differently in the southern hemisphere.
All right, well, that was I Love You Too. It's an Aussie film that is on very difficult to find. So
You got to go hunting for it.
Yeah, if you do want to check it out.
I mean,
It's on our Australian streaming service.
Yes.
Stan. So if you're in Australia, you can watch it on Stan.
Yeah.
oh
But
God.
let's move on to.
I want to say something about that first because I posted on Instagram when we were watching it, like watching this movie, the poster, and I had people message me going, Peter Dinklage was in an Australian movie? Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And I
he
was
was
like,
going hard in that, like in between those early seasons of Game of Thrones. He was in
Game
a
of Thrones
lot
hadn't aired yet.
Yeah, it was 2010.
Oh, I think it airs late this
Oh,
year.
late. Oh,
but
okay,
yeah.
right. Well, he would have already filmed the season then, surely.
he had like a decent film
Oh, he
career
had-
up there,
oh,
you know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
he was
for
like,
sure.
it's like we all remember he was
But
the
he's
little
like
dude from
a
Elf.
star now. He's like,
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next.
oh,
film.
this
Look
one
at
is
this.
a masterpiece. Masterpiece.
Suspecting her husband of infidelity, gynecologist Dr. Catherine Stewart hires an escort named Chloe in order to test their faithfulness. Soon, the relationships between all three intensify.
That is a very apt description for a movie that doesn't fulfill its potential.
Yeah.
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 in many ways.
In many ways.
In many ways.
I mean, she looks
It doesn't.
seductive.
It feels like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a-
Yeah.
Like,
feels like
especially
a
the way
horror.
that the Chloe is like, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
It feels like that, and the way that this movie is written should feel like that. Like,
It's supposed
it
to
just
be
doesn't.
like a thriller. It's
it doesn't
supposed- yeah.
translate to a thriller though when you actually watch it.
And it wants to give you the thriller ending, which I know we'll get into.
It
but-
should like it should have just completely committed to being like batshit melodramatic.
I don't mind this poster for what this movie wants to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
what it is
Is
not
not-
this
yeah.
poster.
There's another poster that I also like where it's actually got Julianne Moore and Liam Neeson in the background.
Oh,
and,
I know what you're talking
and
about.
Chloe like and her faces. Yes.
That
I
one, yeah.
actually I don't mind that one either.
Still
but
same,
once
same
again,
vibes though.
once
from
again,
that
it's
poster.
it's wanting to be the movie that it's meant to be, but
Yeah.
it's
It's just not.
It's just
So like the
not.
movie that
Execution is
this is
not there.
being promoted as is
like almost like
kind
a
of like
sexy
a
thriller.
fatal attraction.
Yeah.
kind of that's what
Yeah.
it that's what it
Fatal Attraction.
feels,
Or
and this
like
feels like a Fatal Attraction. type.
Obsessed, which
Yeah, that
Beyonce, which was
yeah.
that was fun.
That was a movie.
But
think I've ever seen
I was like just so bored and so not turned on by a movie that was supposed
Oh
to
my
be
god!
like
The
Yes.
chats that we had for this movie
This
was great.
This is what I said to you guys in the chat. This is, I don't know what the American equivalent would be, maybe Hallmark movie, maybe, but this is what we would air on Channel 7 at midday on a Tuesday. This is what the film in both.
It's a daytime
It's
movie.
a daytime movie because it has.
it would be
none
our
of the-
our Lifetime channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair. So
Yeah.
it'd be because it doesn't have any of the gusto that a movie like this should have. Like, you know, it feels so surface level with its plot. It feels so surface level with its twists. It's supposed to be a sexy thriller. It's
And
not
look who they
that.
cast.
And
it should be.
Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore,
and
like
Liam Neeson.
Julianne Moore, Liam Neeson, and Amanda Seyfried. There are three people that are not afraid to exude sexuality.
No.
You know, and in this movie,
So they're cast in the perfect potential
Yeah.
in this movie.
and you've got Amanda Seyfried, like as a call girl, whose relationship with Julianne Moore turns sexual.
Yes,
and
yeah.
you should feel like
You say like you should be turned on
should
by
be
this.
turned
There should be
on,
an
yeah.
element of this, not like in the sense of like this movie should be making you feel like there's a lot more sexuality in it.
You're
And
like,
it's
oh,
just
that's
so
legitimately sexy,
tame.
and
Yeah,
that's
super
like,
tame.
you know.
Until the sex scene, which I know I played it up for you guys. I know you guys were disappointed. Everyone at this
Yeah.
table was disappointed.
no.
by the
Just to
sex
give
scene.
some context.
Yeah. So how did you describe the sex scene, Nick?
I said in the context of the film, it's a very graphic sex scene.
No, you did not.
Did I?
Sorry, no.
Yeah.
You did not say in the context of the
Okay.
film. You just said
That's
it's a
what I
very
meant.
graphic sex
It's, like,
scene.
it's a graphic.
Yeah.
I'm a Christian mum. It's a graphic sex scene, and we shouldn't watch it.
And then
It's-
Jacob and Taylor
it's
watched it, and you were
It's 'cause
like,
women on women. We
We
can't
were like,
have-
it's okay.
Yeah.
Look.
It's sexy, but it's not.
Yeah.
I would
and then
like.
I watched it and I was just like, oh, Nick, you've got so much.
I literally
I've
I
never
put
watched
I
Girls
put in the
Girls
chat. I
before.
was like, Peter sitting there going like, is this what like
Is this
hetero
like-
people think sexy is? Like, is this what the
like,
straights
oh.
are thinking that's sexy?
Because I'm like,
I want to justify myself once and for all.
Trust me, we can show you some shit,
In the context and the tone of
and you'll
the
want to
film.
and you'll want to watch it soon enough.
This movie was my sexual awakening, okay, and I've never seen anything like that before.
Fair.
In the context of the film, with how tame it is, it just really just gets into a lesbian sex scene that doesn't match the tone
No,
of the
it
movie.
doesn't.
Yeah,
It's
like,
the only reason that
it
film
is a
is
fair
MA.
criticism to say the sex scene.
That's what I mean. Because it actually caught me off
yeah.
guard. Because I'm watching this movie, I'm like, this is fucking boring. I'm like, wow. So, it really, I went, holy fuck, that's graphic for this movie. I've seen blue is the warmest color. I know what a graphic sex scene looks like. But in the tone of this movie, it just doesn't fit.
I was
Well,
also a little bit just.
You're okay with that, by the way. Let's drop it now.
My goodness. There wasn't even a real sex scene in Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and it was
That was-
sexier with them just like laying there
that
naked.
whole movie, because
It's
there's just
sensual.
it's sensual.
it's not-
there is
yeah.
nothing remotely erotic about Julianne Moore and Amanda Seyfried
No.
in this movie, which is like shocking because their
has so much
characters,
potential to
the relationship that they want to show us. Yeah,
I was put off because, first of all, the first half of the movie, you're like, yeah, I'm feeling this. This isn't really. And then when the twist happens, I don't believe Amanda Seyfried's character at all. Yeah. Like when she's suddenly this sinister, like
She's not really an escort.
I don't believe it.
No,
I don't believe
yeah.
it for a second.
and like when you so I suppose we can
yeah,
happily talk about the
yeah.
twist. So Julianne Moore believes her husband Liam Neeson is cheating on her, which is a fair assumption because he's flirty with every woman he meets, and he misses
travels.
yeah.
And he
for
doesn't treat
work.
Julianne Moore
No,
well at all.
no.
and he misses a flight, and she sees a photo of him with a young student. So for the whole movie, well, for the most of the movie, you're under the
you're made to
assumption that
assume.
he is cheating on her. So she hires Amanda Seyfried, like, hit on my husband, I want to see what happens. And then Amanda Seyfried meets up with Julianne Moore constantly to basically relay their sexual meetings. And the way that Amanda Seyfried describes them is really awkward.
Really awkward.
Like, it sounds like a really bad...
Even funnier
novel.
when they show you.
It sounds
when-
like someone who's never had sex talking about what their sex
Like how
was
she's
like.
just like... And then, what was it? Like
When
he
they're
got...
in the,
like he
when
got
they're in the greenhouse,
greenhouse?
and she's like, and I can't remember what she was. She's like, I was giving a hand job to Liam Neeson, and then like they're showing us how the scene's like working, and she's like, and he was super hard.
Like,
and
and
he's
then-
like
yeah,
that.
and
And
then
then
he
he
got-
puts his hand on the window like Titanic
She's like,
style, like
yeah,
he's like,
and then
"Ugh."
he got like hard in my hand. Like
Oh,
it was all...
she talks about him like coming in her
He-
hand, and so she's like,
well,
and then,
she,
yeah, it's like,
there-
and they
I'm
held
pretty
on to
sure
the
there's an
cum.
exact line that says, and then he entered me.
That's it.
That's right.
And
Oh
I was
my
like,
God.
excuse me?
But then when you realize that the twist...
Can you imagine if that's how all sex is? All porn is like, that's like, enter me. I want you to enter me.
It'd be like, I'm good, thanks. But like when you realize that Amanda Seyfried is making it all up,
Yes.
you sort of look back and go, the really bad descriptions
Yeah.
almost make sense because she's just making it
She's
up.
making all that shit
But
up.
a woman in her profession would be able to
make that shit up.
that sound,
Yeah.
but would be able to make it sound a lot more realistic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you'd just be like, we went to the, you'd be like, he fucked me.
Yeah.
You'd be like, he fucked me, and like you'd be able to like,
Yeah.
you know,
And
that's
you
what
would,
it- that's
and because she was lying, she gave too much detail.
yeah.
Yes.
Like, you never
Like-
give that much
Like,
detail.
yeah, you would actually just say, we went to the greenhouse, I gave him a hand job, and then he fucked me.
Yeah. Like, that's all you would
And
need
you'd
to
be
say.
like, oh, like, and that would be like really
because it's just blunt. It's to the
Yeah.
point. It's what
Whereas
happens.
she makes it this like,
But that's what this.
You
I
know.
feel like that's also what the movie's trying to do to try and make it feel more sexy. But then they don't say
Yeah.
he fucked me. He came in my hand. They're just like he entered me. And he jismed all in my palm. Like it's, you know what I mean? It's like it's not sexy because they haven't
That is a
written it
line in the
sexy.
movie.
And
Is it actually? Oh, I believed it 100%.
I want
That's how much we've forgotten this movie.
I want to talk about probably what I think is in contention for the least sexy scene in the movie, and it's when she starts having sex with their son.
Oh
my
my
God.
god!
And she comes looking at Julianne Moore's clothes.
That's right.
remember I said that? No, I wrote that and I was like, wait, is she coming looking at Julianne Moore's wardrobe? And you were like, That's what it seems like. And like it really, and you watch and you go, yep, because you get that she's obviously for some reason she becomes infatuated with Julianne Moore, and also there's not really much to like suggest why Julianne Moore was who she decided to.
Because we learned that when they run into each other in the bathroom, it was on purpose. But how are we supposed to know that like she was trying to run into Julianne?
Yeah.
Like there's nothing that suggests.
And like maybe if there was some sort of backstory where like Julianne Moore did something nice to her once, or like anything, but it's just a case of no, I was in the bathroom waiting for you on purpose. You're like, yeah, but why?
Yeah,
you know, yeah.
It's a weirdo.
But like that's like it should be this horrifying scene where she's worked her way so far into the graces of this family where now she's having sex with their son in his parents' bed.
It should feel
and like
dangerous.
it should feel like this big climactic, excuse the pun, moment. And like it's just not. You're like, is she having sex with their son and also getting off to the wardrobe in the closet?
Because
And
that sentence saying having sex with her son whilst getting off to her wardrobe is like, that's creepy.
Yeah.
And like if Amanda Seyfried if she was unhinged more, it would make it seem like I'm terrified of this.
Not unhinged until the twist.
Yeah.
And
then you're supposed to be
the
like,
twist is
even
like,
the twist,
she
like
is unhinged,
she's still
she's
pretty
very
neutral when she's
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
then
there was a lot of
the
potential
son's-
in this idea.
Yeah.
The son's also an fucking
he's a little
asshole.
asshole.
Oh my god! If I was Julian Moore, that was my son, I'd be like boarding school.
But I love how
fuck off.
But I also love how like the whole movie you're meant to believe that Liam Neeson is the bad guy, and then he's like, I've never actually cheated on you. He's
Yes,
like,
that's right.
He's like, you know, yes, I flirt
That
with
argument
women.
in the kitchen's not bad.
I was
But
like-
that's good because they're good actors.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
why.
How it's just like, yes, I flirt with other women, and I feel like you've been pulling away, like, you know, and you sort of go, oh my god, this whole time, like, he's like Amanda Seyfried is Liam Neeson's the only person she doesn't have sex with in that family. Like Julianne Moore.
son.
Like Julianne Moore.
Oh, I thought
is-
you said Julianne Moore. I was like, no,
No.
she doesn't have sex with her son. Oh, sorry. No, I had miscommunication. You can edit that out if you want. I freaked out for a second. I was like, no. You
No, that's definitely
Okay.
staying.
Straight men don't listen.
But yeah,
So anyway, I entered her, and yeah, it was just.
so Chloe's just a ridiculously unsexy thriller, and I don't know how.
And it's not even much of a thriller.
Yeah.
No.
Like, and I have no idea how with this cast you made it unsexy.
Yeah.
That's the biggest
Yeah, I
crime
know.
of this movie.
It really
It's
is.
just
I would
so
argue
unsexy.
second biggest one of those final shots of the movie,
Fair
in
enough.
which Julianne Moore confronts Chloe Amanda Seyfried in the bedroom, and she seems to make her way to these
window.
large pane windows that all rich people have in their houses, and then does the window?
Yeah.
the window moves.
I think she pushes her,
pushes
and
her
Amanda Seyfried
against the
hits the
window.
window, and then the whole window frame just goes pop and falls out.
But then
and then Amanda Seyfried holds
she's like
on,
hanging on,
but then like purposely lets go.
she like looks at Julianne Moore. She's like, I came looking at your dresses, and then just like Jesus falls.
She doesn't actually say that.
But her eyes said it. And then she has like her hands out like Jesus style and falls
And
to
then
her
the one,
death.
and then I was like, oh, maybe we'll get some awesome payoff where we'll just see her like go flat on the ground. No, fade out.
Super long. So like it took like it's a slow motion shot, and it was like 30 seconds
not 30
longer than it needed. It felt like
Yeah, it feels like it.
felt like quarantine. That's what it felt like.
This movie is only like 100
It's
minutes.
90 minutes, not
and
even
it
that,
feels
yeah.
very
way
long.
longer.
Oh, yeah.
It's not.
So that's Chloe. Not a recommendation around the
No.
board. No,
No.
definitely not.
Unfortunately
Not a
not.
good movie.
Yeah, like how, but and then they said that this was the movie that Amanda Seyfried getting this, though, like that gave her more of like an opening in Hollywood, because they were like, oh, she can do more than just be the
I think this was the movie where Hollywood started to see she's more willing to do.
and also like
more
she's not
stuff.
just like the comedy girl, because you know we'd have Mean Girls, Mamma Mia at that point.
Yeah.
So
All right, let's move on to the weekend box office. In at number one, we had Iron Man 2 with $128 million opening in 2010.
no joke.
that's a good opening for 2010.
Yeah, number two, Nightmare on Elm Street with 9.1
I was gonna say
million dollars.
90.
No,
Wow.
sorry.
Second weekend of 91
What a jump.
dollars.
Number three, we had How to Train Your Dragon with 6.6
Nice.
million. Number four, Date Night with 5.4 million. The Backup Plan with 5.03 million. Furry Vengeance with 4.4 2.4 million, Clash of the Titans with 2.5 million, Death at a Funeral with 2.3 million, Babies with 2.16 million, and The Losers with 1.8 million. Dropped off from last week, we had Oceans dropped from 10th and Kick-Ass dropped from 8th.
Yeah.
In major news stories, Doug Liman is attached as the director of Warner Brothers' adaptation of The Three Musketeers. This film is separate to the Paul W.S. Anderson film of the same name, which is already confirmed and shooting. Ultimately, this film would not happen.
Yeah.
I'd like to see
Doug Liman as well.
taking on.
So this film, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but this was really a project of Warner Brothers because Sherlock did so well. Because Sherlock Holmes did so well, they were like, let's just get all these classic novels and adapt all of them in a steampunk modern setting. And then I think they just kind of went, W.S. Anderson's doing it already. He's going to completely destroy the brand. Let's just not even bother.
And how?
What foresight.
We had Men in Black 3 is confirmed. Will be released May 25th, 2012. Will Smith confirmed with Brolin already in talks to play a younger Agent K. Tommy Lee Jones had not confirmed yet.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me too much. Like, I feel like Tommy Lee Jones was
I did not like the end result of that movie.
So Men in Black 3, which was, I think this was more of a big thing because at this point, Will Smith hadn't actually been in a movie since 7 Pounds, which was 3 years ago. So that
movie underperformed. So his
massively,
clout as being box office gold was kind of
this was really, he had taken a big break. He doesn't have another movie. He has one next year, I'm pretty sure, and I can't remember. Might actually not be until Men in Black. I can't actually remember. I should probably look that up. Next, we had Brad Bird is confirmed as the director of Mission Impossible 4.
Nice.
So we actually get Brad Bird. He is officially confirmed that he will be the director of Mission Impossible 4. And
the host protocol.
Lastly, the first trailer for Super 8 is played
I love
before
that movie.
Iron Man 2 screenings. The film still is not yet dated, and the trailer doesn't even actually have a title.
I remember that teaser trailer, and that is an awesome.
But I just remembered
trailer.
because it was funny rewatching Iron Man 2. I was like, that's right. This was when Paramount Pictures were distributing it. So that's why Super 8 would have played in front of it.
So still Paramount. All the trailer simply ends with summer 2011. They did the same thing with Cloverfield. So when Cloverfield first came out, that was the same thing. They just released the trailer, but they didn't put anything in there.
Super 8.
Super 8 is so good, and no one talks about it anymore.
We'll talk about it in a year's time.
Yeah, we definitely will. So anything there jump out for you guys?
I just found out the other day that Josh Brolin was not the first choice to play young Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh, really? Who was it?
Mark Wahlberg.
Ew. I mean, great idea. Wonderful thinking there.
Your first reaction was fine.
I can't see that.
I can't see Mark Wahlberg doing what Josh Brolin did.
I can see Mark Wahlberg being Tommy Lee Jones's son in something.
Yeah, but I can't reconcile
the way that Tommy Lee Jones acted.
No.
Josh Brolin had it down.
So good.
No way.
Yeah,
there's
Mark Wahlberg
no
couldn't
way
do
that
it.
Wahlberg can play that version of a Tommy Lee Jones character. Just not gonna happen.
No.
That was Will Smith's first movie since 7 Pounds.
There you go.
Men in Black 3. So he took a 4-year break.
I mean,
That's
he had
kinda nuts.
he had the money for
He
it.
can afford it.
I mean, he produced Karate Kid, which we'll see later this year. But yeah,
He took time to let his son have the spotlight. For the whole movie.
That went really well.
for me, Doug Liman has so many of these movies where he's attached.
Yeah.
He works on it, and then it never happens. He's got this, he's got Gambit, he was attached to the Uncharted movie at one point. There's a lot of movies that he has.
We're always meant to get a Jumper sequel.
Yeah, that too.
That's
There's
true,
a lot that Lyman. We're meant to get an Edge of Tomorrow 2 as well, which is still up in the air. There's a lot of those ones where his name's attached.
Isn't that title supposed to be Live, Die, Repeat, Repeat?
Something like that.
Let's fucking hope not.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Well, considering Edge of Tomorrow is now titled Live, Die, Repeat, according to Warner Brothers. So
I will never call it that in
Edge
my
of Tomorrow.
entire life.
Yeah.
Literally not ever.
Edge of Tomorrow. I was like, how is Edge of Tomorrow not
better
such a
in
great
every
title,
single
right?
way.
Yeah.
Who wants to see a movie called Live, Die, Repeat?
Isn't it because that's what the
It's
graphic
because it
novel
says
is
Live,
called?
Die, Repeat,
No,
but also
it's 'cause
Live, Die,
because
Repeat
the
was
marketing
so
was that.
Oh.
big on the poster, and then it was like Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, and then people thought it was called
Die,
Live Die.
Repeat.
Yeah,
I'm literally never gonna
The
call it
comic
that.
book is actually called All
Live.
You Need Is Kill.
All you need is kill.
Which is what
that's
the
right.
movie was originally going to be called.
Yeah,
but
and then they
thought,
changed it.
that doesn't make, they're not,
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Anyway,
Oh,
Warner
Dougie.
Brothers, not going to happen.
We're
Not
gonna
in this
keep-
podcast.
We're going to keep calling it Edge of Tomorrow, and we'll even call Edge of Darkness Edge of Tomorrow. So
Doesn't matter.
When we talk about Harley Quinn, I'm going to say the full title every time. Not going to shorten it for cinemas. Harley Quinn and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
Birds
Yeah,
of Prey.
Birds of
And you tried really hard.
We'll give you points. We'll give you points for that. But fuck.
I'll give you points because you got the whole long part
You got the
actually
Fantabulous
right.
Emancipation, which so many people did.
All right, and lastly, in Australian release dates, we had I Love You 2 and The White Ribbon. They were the two films that opened this week.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
The
Did you-
white
of course.
ribbon. The white ribbon.
Yes.
Did you get to see it? No.
No.
No,
I would like
never heard of it.
White Ribbon probably would have been one of those movies that I would have seen if I was reviewing. I was still not reviewing it. This
Oh, it's a
time.
Michael Haneke movie.
Oh.
Yeah, black and white
This is
Michael
before
Haneke movie.
Amour.
Yeah,
Probably
so
means it's really messed up.
probably. All right, let's. Yeah, that's the
That's
show,
our
guys.
week this week,
Thank
you
you
guys.
so much for checking out this week's
it's
episode
kinda
of 10 Years On.
Watch Iron Man 2. Maybe
Maybe.
watch I Love You 2 and don't bother
That's
about
that's about it.
We went-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Next week, guys, we have Letters to Juliet, Just Right, and the 2010 edition of Robin Hood. I am very excited to talk about these movies next week. Until then, guys, my name is Jacob London. I want to thank you so much for checking out this week's episode. Down below, we have our Patreon. We have all the links for all of our online social we have all the links for our social network sites. I will learn to speak one day. It's going to be amazing. Guys, make sure you do go down and also check out our audio versions of these episodes if you do want to check them out on, while you're running, while you're stuck inside and not able to actually listen to them at the moment because we're all in quarantine. I want to thank my co-host and my panelists for joining this week's episode. And until next week, guys, my name's Jacob London and we will see you then.